Order, and if we will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a roll call first, and if you would, please use your microphone whenever you're speaking, and I guess there's a way to turn it on and off. Is that right?
They have a button.
A button. Here?
Bonnie,
Here.
I'm telling him I'm not doing. Diane Patterson,
Here.
Josh Upham,
Here.
and Marvin Whitworth.
Here.
And we have a quorum. So we will now have the reading of the September 21st, 2021 minutes, please.
Madam Chairman, I move we dispense with the reading of the minutes and approve as presented, if that's possible.
Oh, is that possible?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
I second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right. Mike, will you please conduct the election of officers?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Mike Hughes, Rutherford County Engineer, filling in for Sheila, who's out on injured reserve, so I hope to do her justice tonight. So we will open the floor for nominations for chairman of the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Do we have any nominations from the floor?
I nominate Miss Delia.
We have a nomination for Ms. Delia. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Upham. Any other nominations from the floor? Okay, I'll move to close the nominations, and then we'll have a vote. All those in favor of Ms. Goodman continue to be the chairman, Madam Chairman for the Stormwater Advisory Commission, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
And now we will elect the vice chairman. Do we have a motion on vice chairman? Okay, Chuck Clark has been our vice chairman for quite a while, several terms. He's now not going to be on our committee anymore. He has resigned, so we need a new vice chairman.
Madam Chairman, I nominate Ms. Diane Patterson for the vice chair.
We have a motion.
I'm sorry, I can't. I decline. Medical. I can't.
Okay, Ms. Patterson has declined.
I withdraw my nomination.
All right. Mr. Whitworth has withdrawn his nomination.
Can I nominate Mr. Whitworth?
I second it.
All right, we have a motion for Marvin Whitworth that's been seconded. Any more nominations? Okay. All in favor of the motion to elect Marvin Whitworth as our vice chairman, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Congratulations, Marvin.
Thank you.
The burden, yes.
All right, we now have a public hearing for the MS4 annual report. Is that you, Mike?
Well, that report was posted online and advertised with this meeting. So we will go through each phase, I guess, with the updating the stormwater activities, but we need to conduct a public hearing to see if there's any input for this fiscal year 2022's annual report. And I have it up on the screen. and we will go over various sections with the next item on the agenda after the public hearing is conducted.
So I declare the public hearing open. Are there any comments from the public? Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Phillips. You may approach the screen. Here's a printed copy, too. Can you pass this down?
Yes.
So are you going to make a statement, Mr. Phillips? Mr. Phillips, are you going to make a statement? Would you like to read it first? Are you going to make a statement? Would you? Okay.
We will go over various items, highlights, in the next item on the agenda for the update of stormwater activities.
There being no comments, I declare the public hearing closed. All right, now we will move on to item number 8, update on stormwater activities.
Okay. I'll take part of that, Madam Chairman. Now, like I said, Sheila's out on injured reserve, so they called me up, I guess the water boy, to help fill in for the star quarterback. So I'll try to do my best. But there are several items that we do and redo over and over every year. Bonnie will be covering the public education and outreach portion of that. But several other items that we cover, one of the items is the illicit discharge detection and elimination. We have our summer interns look at the outfalls and identified that we have 394 in the county. And what we, as this county, what we cover is outside the municipal areas of Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville. So this is, I'll scroll through some of the items that you see up on the screen. For number 4, illicit discharge and detection, I mentioned that we have 394, but we also do a visual stream assessment by walking annually, pipe outfalls, inspections, follow-up by complaints. We've received 6 illicit discharge related complaints, and we've investigated all 6 of those. For the construction site, stormwater runoff pollution control, this is during development of a construction of a subdivision. It's construction, it's infrastructure, that's the roads, stormwater networks, water, sewer, everything. Everything's torn up to make this new development, and we have as of this past year, says we have constructed sites disturbing at least 1 acre or more. We have 75 sites in this period, and I'll scroll to that. And of those construction sites, we've had 20 total complaints, 8 for land disturbance, 7 for drainage, 1 for mud tracking into the street, and 3 other various items. Now, there are several others that we'll go through a little bit farther on, but these mainly deal with the construction issues that we have during the construction phase. For number 6 is the permanent stormwater management at new developments and redevelopment projects. Those are the post-construction after everything's finished and moved ahead. Just a couple of the highlights. We've reviewed and approved 45 subdivision and site plans this past year. We have had 29 pre-construction meetings where new sections have opened up, and we sit down with the contractors and talk to them about erosion control measures and things like that. and we have reviewed 104 final plats in this past year. Moving on to stormwater management for municipal operations, we have used our summer interns as well for this, and that's, let's see, excuse me. Like I said, you've got the water boy filling in for the star quarterback. We inspect roads and highways, municipal parking lots, maintenance and storage yards, so like the highway department, solid waste, fleet maintenance shops, the garage that we have our vehicles worked on, the salt storage locations at the highway department, snow disposal areas. Essentially, if we have to plow, we just push it off to a site and let it melt with the warmer weather. We also inspect waste disposal, storage, and transfer stations. And then, let's see, on Section 8 is the review and updating of the stormwater management program. This is kind of a self-audit of how we're doing. And Sheila's, I'll read it to you, but overall, Rutherford County's program struggles to keep up with all the requirements due to being understaffed, even with the addition of a new engineer in training. And Duncan Cox is a young graduate out of the University of Alabama that went to work for us recently, and he's been a great help. It's just that the massive amount of work that and the growth that this county has experienced, we're struggling day to day to keep up with that. We review construction drawings. We have to review planning commission and plat review items. And then also we do zoning compliance applications. So if anybody wants to build a house, a barn, a shed, anything out in the county, they submit an application to us, look at it, we evaluate it, we give it an engineering evaluation. And this is to keep us as a resilient community from flood damage. So this takes up a lot of time along with construction plan review. We also provide engineering advice to the mayor, the departments. We've been contacted for several projects that we actually help design. We worked on the Blackman One Stop site over by Blackman High School, which will be a clerk's office. It will have a state licensing update. We have designed, help work on the new public health and safety buildings around the county, these fire and EMS stations. So we do a lot of things that aren't in this report, but needless to say, with this, the growth that we're experiencing, it's a tremendous task that we stay on top of things. But we have online training in place to help to meet our training requirements. Our construction inspection program is using a Survey 123. It's a GIS tracking system where our stormwater inspector, John Cortez, out in the field, he can make reports of issues or any problems and complaints or anything like that, and that's automatically uploaded, and we can use that location information for our reports, which has been a wonderful tool. Our SWIP inspections are being completed annually. Post-construction pond and parking lot inspections are being completed annually, which is a large undertaking, and that's, like I mentioned before, we use our summer interns. We've been fortunate to have 5 really outstanding summer interns that have helped us out tremendously, not just the post-construction and pond inspections. They've helped Bonnie out and on time to time, just doing everything and anything that they've asked, which has been really wonderful. Planning and engineering is in the process of moving to an online digital tracking system, and is spending time working on this process. So we're Everything now is going to be essentially paperless once we get there, which is going to be hard for an old engineer like me who really likes the paper in hand. So everything's going to be submitted online, reviewed, and kept track of online, which we think will be a great asset once we get this all up and running. Building Codes is already working on it. We are working on it in a test phase right now for planning and engineering, so we're getting closer to be there. The summer apprentice program, Sheila states, is working very well and have deliverables at the end of each summer for inspections, reports, notice of violations, and visual stream assessment data collections. Education and outreach is effective with our great asset, Bonnie, and she will go over more of that in a few minutes. But let's see. Moving on, and the enforcement response phase in this past year, we've had to issue 5 verbal warnings. I'd say there's probably more than that if we actually included our construction inspectors with that. They are trained to be level 1 TDEC certified for erosion prevention and sediment control. So if there's an issue out in the field, our construction inspectors will address that with the contractors and say, hey, you need to repair this fence, you need to do other items to help keep mud and silt and sediment out of streams, out of roads, out of the stormwater network that we're building. We've had to issue 9 written notices. Citations, we did not have to go that far. Each one of these are a different step in the I guess reaction phase. We have had to issue 7 stop work orders. A lot of times we will issue those where someone does not have a permit. They've done some clearing, they've done work without any permits, any erosion control issues. So we'll say, hey, stop what you're doing, come talk to us. We need to come and get the right permits and get the right erosion control measures up to make sure we're not muddying our streams and creeks and roads. But other than that, we've not had to withhold any plan approvals or authorizations, even though I'd like to a few times, but we've not had to officially done that or any other additional measures. So most of our problems, like I said before, were grading and filling operations without a permit. A lot of people just don't know that are building a house or a barn and said, they'll clear a patch of land and start for doing some work, and we'll ask them, say, hey, you need to come in and get a permit and put some erosion control measures up. But that is the highlights of the fiscal year 2022 draft. It is online. We will make some fine-tuning and revisions with this as we go along. And then eventually, once we get it all worked out, we'll send this over to Mayor Carr for him to sign and submit to the state. And with that, I will pass it on to Bonnie to highlight her efforts in stormwater education.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to pull off bits and pieces that Sheila had summarized and with a few comments. So Section E said that to summarize the public education outreach, involvement, and participation. So there are 2 kinds of outreach. There's general and there's targeted. And in the general outreach, I do things like create workshops for teachers. I go visit classrooms. I go to Rutherford County Earth Day, Stones River Waterfest. I go to Sam Davis Home and am a part of their outdoor field trip twice a year. When people request presentations such as the farmers market or master gardeners, I go and do that as well. So the targeted education is more specifically for groups. So the targeted education that I'm not involved in included a tree day, which there were trees, watersheds, many watersheds are identified. The citizens within that watershed are contacted, and they're given the opportunity to receive free trees. So that's Tree Day. There, within the county, there's household hazardous waste events, and that's conducted by the sanitation,
Solid Waste Department, yes.
solid waste department, thank you. And there are drug drop-off sites. As Mr. Hughes says, we continue to educate contractors and developers at their pre-construction meeting to help them understand that what they do is very important. Flyers go to builders, not to buildings. Flyers are sent to builders about sediment prevention, the #1 pollutant in our streams. And there is continued staff training for sediment prevention, illicit discharge, and just in general good housekeeping to keep our stormwater clean. Section F said summarize any specific successful outcomes, and this is where there are numbers attached to it. So Project WET within Rutherford County during our COVID era educated 628 children. 47 teachers were trained and educated about stormwater. That would be with the workshops. Rutherford County mailed 8 letters to homeowners with stream buffers about the importance of the buffers, meaning please don't cut it. It's important. And explaining why it's important. And there was, for Tree Day, there was 1,225 tree seedlings delivered. And I believe Murfreesboro was involved in that as well. It's a great partnership. Solid Waste collected 11,088 pounds of household hazardous waste from the county. They hold a day, and you drive by and drop your stuff off. It's an amazing day. Our sheriff's department collected 1,444 pounds of prescription drugs and prevented them from being dumped in the toilet, which is a pollution. I'll say that. Stormwater website had 1,718 hits. Sheila is now in charge of the website and its contents, so she's happy that she has more control over that and can change things. Waterfest is an outdoor field trip that we offer for students in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Last September, we canceled Waterfest either a week or 2 weeks before it happened because that was the Omicron surge. I could not be responsible for bringing that many children together during that surge. So we canceled it and moved it to May. And because it was in May, we had probably not as many as we normally do. We educated 862 students and had over 100 volunteers. And that was this past May. And we're back on our annual track, so 2022-23 Waterfest is this Friday. And we have 1,400 students coming.
And where will it be?
Pardon?
Where will it be?
We hold it at Old Fort Park, and we fill the park. Thank you.
And I wanted to ask, how long will this be online, this report?
That I don't know. I think we have, 90 days or something like that to... Okay, so less than that. We have to be at the end of this, right. So Phyllis is helping me out and telling me that it has to be to the state by the end of this month. So we have some more, few minor revisions to make, and then once we get that all worked out, we'll get the mayor to sign that, and we'll send the report off to the state. Yes.
Okay, okay. So they said they will upload a signed copy
And have it on our
for the
website,
year.
yes. Mhm.
Okay.
And that's typically what we do with previous reports, and they are available online at our website, under Stormwater, and we've got under the Stormwater website that Bonnie had mentioned that Sheila's running now. It's got a section for annual reports, and we've got them all the way back to fiscal year 2012. So we've got those earlier reports available as well.
Are there any questions, comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I've had the opportunity to work with the interns here, and they've been really good to work with. And I also like to compliment all the hard work that Bonnie does. The city of Murfreesboro and then also the other municipalities benefit from all the hard work with education that Bonnie does.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for giving the report. You did a fine job.
Thank you. Well, hopefully Sheila will be back in next year, or next meeting, I should say.
So are we ready to move on now to the next item on the agenda? This is new NPDES. What does that stand for? NPDES.
Josh was going to take that. That's
Phase 2 permit discussion.
National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Josh,
Hey,
you want to go ahead?
Josh? Excuse me. Sorry,
Sheila
Mike.
had asked me to fill in a little bit. I won't go deep into this, but yes, we were under a new permit. It was draft for a while. On September 1st, it became effective, and so there's several documents that are triggered once it went effective. We have 90 days to get these documents done. I think the most important one is the notice of intent. And so that's basically a document that identifies how MS4 programs will comply with the permit. And it's basically an outline summary. Within that, I believe they ask for your enforcement response plan, your monitoring plan, and then in particular, the implementation plan of the new permanent stormwater management program in new development or post-construction. And so, yeah, all of those will be due within 90 days of the effective date of the permit, September 1st. They'll be turned in. Everything's going to start being submitted electronically through My TDEC forms. So different than before when you would, you fill it out on paper or you'd print it out, and it's going to be electronic now. The new permit itself, I don't know if you're familiar with the minimum measures, but there are 6 minimum measures that basically the annual report highlights activities in those. Public education and outreach, which Bonnie talked about, that remains the same. They're more prescriptive about the audiences. They break it out into public. You have to do some education for your engineering and development community, which I think is covered here too, and employees. Second minimum measure is public involvement, participation. Illicit discharge, detection and elimination is another element or minimum measure. Construction site runoff, all of these were reported on in the report that Mr. Hughes just went over. And then I think Sheila wanted me to go over, and Mike, you may help me out here a little bit, but the new post-construction permanent stormwater management rule. That's where they kind of give standards for new development, the water quality criteria, and then also, that's where the buffers are defined, the streamside buffer and the widths. This permit, they've started talking about averaging and averaging of buffers that you, I guess you can deviate as long as there's a minimum width and the average of the buffer stays, I guess, the same throughout the rest of the project.
Increase it in some places if you have to reduce it in some others, but have a standard average, yes.
I guess that could get pretty complicated.
Right. And right now we have for a drainage basin of under a square mile, 640 acres, it's a 30-foot buffer from top of bank out 30 feet on each side. Over a square mile is 60 feet. So Sheila was telling me that they're changing the construction buffer widths, and we need to make sure that our regulations match at least what TDEC has. And we can be a little more stringent than that, but we need to at least match what they're having during the construction phase. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's good clarification there. And, yeah, and so in this minimum measure, this element of the program, that the buffers are defined, the water quality standards for new development. It also talks about you have to inspect all of the stormwater controls, the ponds and different things, which earlier is being done, and once every 5 years, and it sounds like they're going above and beyond that. And then there's some language in there in the new rule about maintaining buffers. So I don't know if that means that they, TDEC is, I guess they want some sort of inspection of water quality streamside buffers. Then there's another little section here that talks about inventory and tracking of stormwater control measures. So they want a database of all of your ponds, all of your stormwater control measures. So anyway, then the last minimum measure is just the pollution prevention and good housekeeping. And done to educate and city or county staff in operation maintenance plans for those. So employee training falls under that one. But yeah, anyway, basically pretty much the same structure as the last permit. I said more prescriptive in different areas, but the main thing is that the notice of intent needs to be completed within 90 days of September 1st. Submitted to TDEC.
Okay. And if I might add, we may need to have a special call meeting to, that we will need to change our stormwater ordinance for this new permit. But we'll have to have it, most likely will occur in May of 2024. We will definitely need to change our stormwater ordinance to meet the new TDEC permit. We may have to change our stream buffer policy, and we may have to change our subdivision regulations to reflect these changes. So Sheila just wanted me to let you know that we may have to have a special call meeting just to talk about these new things. And as we are developing these new policies and procedures, she wanted me to ask, how involved does the Stormwater Advisory Committee want to be with those changes and development of these new changes? I'm just throwing that out to the advisory committee.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's kind of important that I need to know, because if there's anything I need to share with teachers and students,
Right.
So I'm willing to participate in that.
And
So doesn't
sorry.
TDEC usually tell us kind of what we have to do?
Yes.
And we follow those?
We have strict guidelines that we have to follow, and time limits, as Josh had mentioned. So we have, a lot of work to do to make sure everything's in order of what their requirements are. So there's a lot of work to be done, but, new policies and procedures might have to be developed out of that. Sheila, I apologize, she's not here, but she's a wealth of information. But these, she just wanted me to pitch this out. How involved do you want us to develop the updated policies and procedures, and then present these to you in a new meeting, or would you like to be involved with the development of these? I mean, would you like to work with us on these?
So, like Ms. Delia just asked, so TDEC we're not going to follow their guidelines?
We will. Yes, we will. But there's certain flexibility that we have to do with these new policies and procedures. we can do above and beyond those minimum requirements to meet the county standards.
So do we have to make that decision tonight?
I don't think so. I don't know. It'd be nice if you gave us some guidance of how you wanted to proceed. Do you want to be involved, or would you rather us develop the policies in-house and staff, and
Seems
and
to be a
then
yes.
represent this to you, and kind of get your take on it, bring it back to you, and say, okay, this is the things that we have to do as a minimum, and these are the things that we can do as a county above and beyond, and you know,
Mike Hughes, that sounds like a plan, right there.
I'm sorry.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
And I would like to add, I should have brought my map, but not all of the streams in Rutherford County are super clean. We've got some streams that are on the list,
Ew.
and we need to address them, and that's what the stormwater regulations are about.
Correct.
And if I'm correct, the width of the buffer is, in the new permit is, and the new rule is based on your impairment, your water quality in the stream, so.
Right. Not just the drainage basin.
Yes.
Right.
So, yeah, and I think would be, the averaging be one thing to consider, whether to
As long as
adopt
we're meeting their minimum, we could be, that flexible.
Are you saying that a more impaired stream would have a wider buffer? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, here I'm reading directly out of the language, and so let's see, exceptional waters or waters with unavailable parameters so that means impaired. That's their new language for impaired.
New language is what?
Unavailable parameters.
Unavailable parameters.
Yeah.
Means
That-
impaired.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
All right.
It says, so any exceptional waters, which there's a listing, I think, that may be attached with the annual report. Exceptional waters are unavailable or impaired for siltation and habitat, have to have an average of 60 feet and a minimum of 30 feet. And if you have a stream that is has available parameters or is unimpaired for those two, siltation and habitat alteration, then the average can be 30 feet, and minimum can be 15. So if you have a stream that's not listed for either of those, then width can be narrower. And I think that there is one other thing that has generated a lot of discussion, and but it's the placement of stormwater controls within the buffer. I think there's maybe a provision for that. That may be a discussion item.
Right. So in the past, stormwater was considered a utility, essentially, that you could have in a buffer. And this is something that we need to investigate a little more fully to make sure we're meeting the new requirements for that. But on the screen, I've pulled up the TDES stream assessment map, and you can see some of the streams are still colored red, which means they are not what's the term? Unavailable. It seems like they change it every permit cycle.
So it's not really unavailable.
It's
They know it, right?
Right. It's impaired, and then the blue ones are supporting, and then the gray ones are not assessed just yet.
Not
So,
assessed? Well, now, I'm from Milton, and I've seen people sampling the water
right.
out there.
Well, they have monitoring sites, but the state has, I guess, not come up with an assessment for some of these, like this Overall Creek, which is hard to believe because it's such a significant waterway.
How often do they do those?
Well, they take a lot of our information, and Josh, you can help me out with this. How often do they, I mean, they reevaluate, they have a list of non-supporting impaired streams that they come out every year, but how often do they?
I believe they have an and I may be totally wrong, but I think they have an assessment cycle of a watershed cycle, they call it, throughout the state, the larger, like Stones River watershed, once every 5 to 6 years, I believe. Yeah, so is that correct?
So on this map, you can see, I can turn on and off other layers, like there's siltation impaired. It shows up a different color, and that's for silt and sediment washing into the stream. Here's habitat impaired. So if they've, and like I said, I wish Sheila was here to explain this a little bit better, but if there's, the buffers are destroyed and it's not a supporting stream, it falls on this layer. So there's a lot of things that goes into the evaluation. This is Lytle Creek that I've kind of zoomed into, and it's some of these are municipal issues, oil, water, grease coming off roadways, construction development, but some of the areas are out in the county, which is more of an agricultural impairment. You can see this is impaired. Lytle Creek, let's see if I can find out.
Do we overlap?
We do. We do. We work a lot with the city, and Josh and Sheila work together quite a lot with these streams evaluations. So we do, and like I said, we share Bonnie with Eagleville, Smyrna, Laverne, and Murfreesboro, and make sure that their education requirements are met. So, but yes, we do work together with all the municipalities in the county. So there's.
What are the little turquoise?
Those are monitoring sites, the little raindrops. That's where TDEC will monitor a site, and let's see. And I apologize, I don't know what they monitor, if it's for pollutants or flow or a combination of all those things.
What do you think the timeline for these revisions are from start to finish?
Like I said, Sheila's already been hard at work at them, and that would be better answered by her. But like I said, my notes, my cheat sheet notes, it says we have the full plan has to be implemented September 1st, 2024. We'll need a meeting in the spring of 2024 to have a public meeting about this, the new permit. And then before that, after that, we'll have to have the plan. They'll have to go back to this advisory committee, and then also the Board of Commissioners by May of 2024. So there's some timelines that, high points that we have to meet with this new permit phase. But I guarantee you Sheila is on top of this. She will not let any of these dates pass.
More comments, questions, observations?
I would I think a draft, if we could see a draft and some rationale, and I think that would be good.
Right. And then Sheila can, I guess, send this to y'all by email or what, and kind of get your feedback.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on in the agenda to new business? Do you want to talk about, we have some vacancies on our committee. Would you like to talk about how they'll be filled?
I can. We have 2 vacancies now, Chuck Clark Chuck Clark sent a very nice email saying he'd enjoyed working with the committee, but he felt like it was time for him to move off. And Rick Cantrell, who was one of the developer representative, he got in touch with me and told me he was no longer interested in being on it. So right now we have 2 vacancies, and we've talked about amending bylaws before. All they say is that it's a 2-year appointment and the mayor does the appointing, and there is a list of people, well, not people, but positions. You have to have someone from soil conservation, someone for education, things like that. So we're going to have to look at who's here, what slot they fill, and what slots need filled. Is it your wish to amend the bylaws to extend the term maybe to 3 years, since we generally only meet once a year? I guess that's something to think about. And we can either do something at the next meeting if we run a public announcement that we're going to amend the bylaws, or there could be a special called meeting to do it.
How would you all like to handle that? Would you like to have a special called meeting like in the fall? Or would you like to, if we wait for our next meeting, that'll be like a year.
Be next September.
Wouldn't we need the new positions filled before?
Seems like it'd be a good idea.
Okay.
Have to.
And Chuck's, what was his category? Whom did he represent?
Chuck,
Maybe you could read the categories.
there's a soil conservation, environmental, minority, agricultural, water and sewer district, civil, builder developer, and education. And I believe Chuck was the civic one.
So is that 9 categories?
No, the builder developer is just one category.
So that's 8 categories?
Yes, and we have 6 members currently.
We probably need to have a motion if we're going to have a special called meeting to do that, I believe. All right, I'm a parliamentary procedure.
Phyllis, did I understand you to say the mayor made these appointments?
Yes, the way the bylaws read now, the mayor makes those appointments.
And you're wanting to know if we want a call meeting to work on the bylaws to change it from 2 to 3 years?
We could do that before we ask the mayor for an appointment, or we could go ahead and work on getting 2 people appointed and then change the bylaws after and work it so we can stagger so you don't all roll off at once.
Does it really matter whether it's 2 or 3 years? Does that make it easier or harder to get people appointed, because there's no limit of how many years you can spend on it, are there?
No.
So the length of the term doesn't really matter.
It doesn't unless you wanted to change it. So I know there was talk of how many consecutive terms at one of the meetings during one of the discussions. But if you're happy the way it is, we'll just ask the mayor for an appointment and go with it.
That would be my recommendation. Just leave it alone and appoint as necessary.
Okay.
All right, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Madam Chairman, I so move.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion that's been seconded to leave the bylaws as they are, which provide for 2-year terms, and to inform the mayor, I guess, let the mayor know that we have vacancies, what the categories those vacancies are, and ask him to appoint members. Am I right?
Sounds right.
Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. That's the way we'll handle it.
Thank you.
That's our new business. Any more new business? Well, before we adjourn, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I'd like to thank Mr. Phillips, the County Commission Chairman, for being here for our meeting. We appreciate the time that you've taken to learn about this. Would you like to say anything, sir?
I'm not out of order. Just a question that related to the type of violations that were being occurred, and that was filling without a permit. You probably just educate correctly, Mike. When someone does that, they didn't know they needed to do it.
Yes, sir.
What do you do with repeat violators?
Well, we can step up the I guess the level. You give them a verbal violation, you give them then a written violation, then you can cite them to court, and for non-compliance, there's permits, penalties and other items that you can hit them with in addition to the court. So it increasingly steps that you can make their life more difficult.
Did we have any of those, or?
We have not yet, but we have the ability to do that. And
So-
typically, we have the carrot and the stick. If it's a development that's going to be a new subdivision or a new commercial site or anything like that, we have the ability to withhold permits, withhold inspections, improvement until they get everything back in order.
That's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that if there were people who continually failed to follow policies, that we were aggressively educating them.
Right.
Okay, very good.
We-
Is it possible for this committee to highlight this report through the Planning Commission, BZA, and Public Works? Is it
Yes, sir.
possible that
We
happen?
can do that as well. Yes,
I
sir.
would suggest that we do that, just to continue to educate our government on that process. And through the Public Works, they could even make this report available to the full county commission in our consent agenda. So that would give this report to all the county commissioners as well. Just a suggestion, you guys can take it or leave it for whatever that's worth.
We can do that.
And also maybe one suggestion too, as it relates to appointing new members. It's sometimes best that staff and the committee recommend someone to do that. So I would strongly suggest that you would have someone in mind that you could go to the mayor and say, this is a person that we would like for you to, instead of leaving the mayor kind of hanging out there trying to figure out what to do. So if that's an appropriate suggestion, I would suggest that you do that as
Sheila's
well.
already in the works with that. Yes, sir.
That's very appropriate.
Thank you.
All right, one other thing we might want to talk about before we adjourn is next year's meeting date. We generally have this meeting once a year about this time of year. Now, are we going to need another meeting before?
I do not know of any reason we would.
Except for what you were talking about, the,
That would be in the 2024
okay.
timeframe.
So-
We've got 2 years to approve the new NPDES permit, but that we need to get stuff done before the Board of Commissioners, their schedule. They're not meeting in July, so we have to move things up a little bit to make sure that we meet those meeting dates and get everything back to the state by September 1st of 2024.
Second Tuesday is September 12th. Is that good for everybody? I'm sure you know right now. Okay, the second Tuesday of September. September 12th. So that is our proposed meeting date for next year. All right. Is there any other business to discuss before we adjourn? All right, this meeting is adjourned.